no gold is not enough.
Hello friends, welcome to my channel Geek-A-Tech. First of all, I would like to thank you to all my viewers and subscribers for their love and their support. If you are new to my channel, please do share, like and subscribe my channel, and don't forget to press notification bell. So friends, till now we have discussed and I have given the review on software testing approaches and software testing tools. So friends, we are going to talk about today a new thing. So today I'm going to give a short tutorial on testing the APIs. So here we are going to discuss about how we can manually test an API. So before going to the more deep into the testing scenarios of the APIs, we should first discuss about the types of APIs. So there are basically two kinds of technologies available to develop the APIs. One is SOAP, and the another one is REST. REST is basically developed on JSON format, and where the SOAP is developed using the XML. The tools which are available in the market are ARC, SOAP UI, Postman. There are many more tools available in the market to test the APIs manually. So friends, I am going to use ARC, Advanced REST Client, which is Chrome extension. So whenever you open the Chrome browser and goes into the apps, and you will see this symbol over there, and you click on it and it will install the Advanced REST Client. It's easy to use. It's a one-click installation only. So it's very easy to maintain also. So these are the points which we are going to cover. We will see how we can fetch records from the DB using get method. Then we will see how we can insert records in DB using post method. Then we will see how we can update records in DB for the using patch method. And the other scenarios we will see, like some of the negative scenarios, along with how we can test the login scenarios. So friends, once you install the ARC, you will get this kind of look on your system. So here I have stored the APIs. I am using some dummy APIs, some dummy REST APIs. So friends, first I'm going to show you that these are the get methods, post method, and patch methods which we are going to test today, and we will see what kind of criteria we should consider while testing those scenarios, and what kind of things we should understand before testing those APIs. So whenever we want to fetch the records from DB, then we should select the method from here, get, because get method is always considered for fetching the records from DB. So now let's see for the first example. So here you can see this is the URL part where we mention the complete URL. Till the API, it's a base URL, then it's the endpoint, and just the parameter. This is the path parameter we are mentioning over here. So 2 is nothing but the user ID, which we are going to mention in the URL, and this is the get method, because whenever we want to fetch the records from DB, we should select get. Now click on send. Here you can see it's 200. Okay, this is the HTTPS response code. Whenever we receive 200 okay, it means data has been successfully fetched from the DB. Also, you can see that this milliseconds mentioned over here, 778.66, is nothing but the response time of API. So it's also a crucial things to consider when we test the API, because when we fetch the data from DB, it shows that for fetching a single record from DB, it's our API taking this much of time. Suppose if we are fetching around thousands of data, then what should be the response time? So if we are facing too much response time, then we should raise it to the developers that while fetching one data, it will take more and more time. So it should be reconsidered, or if the issue has been should be resolved, because if there are more and more data, then it might lead to crashing of the site or crashing of our product. So it's also a good point to be considered when we test the API. Along with this, you can see that this is the REST API, so the complete response come over here is like in the key and value format. Here you can see that ID is the key and 2 is the ID number. So this 2 we have mentioned over here. So based on this ID, it fetch all the complete information about the user, like email, first name, last name, avatar, and the other details it fetch from the DB. So this this response is the JSON response. For SOAP, it's a different kind of response. It's basically come into the XML format. So this is all about the get record from DB. So this is the only one single record we have fetched from the DB based on the parameter we have given into the path. It's called as the path variable. Now we are going to see another scenario where we are going to fetch the list of records. So whenever we saw that when we test our scenarios from UI, when we select search criteria and click on search button, then it fetch around 10 data or hundreds of data from the DB. So how it's do? So basically what happens when we click on search button on the UI, and what happens on the behind the scenes is that the get method has been called with the proper parameters and the list of the data fetched from the DB, and based on the results, the user have integrated it with the UI, and it shows the results on the UI, the list of the data on the UI. So here you can see that this is the URL, this is the path param, this is the query param we have mentioned over here. So this scenario is basically used for the pagination, like page equals to 2 means there are a couple of pages available for fetching the data. So we just want to fetch the data which should be available on page 2. So we have mentioned over here page equal to 2. Now let's click on send. So now you can see here's 305.92 milliseconds. This is the response time of our API. 200 OK, which is an HTTPS response, which is with this response comes whenever we fetch the data successfully from the DB. Here you can see there are 6 records come from the DB for page 2, array of 6. So it means there are 6 records successfully fetched from the DB based on the input we have given in the URL for page 2. So you can see 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 6 record has been fetched successfully from the DB. You can see the IDs 7, 8, 9, and 10, their email IDs, their first name, their last name. So completely all the data we have fetched from the DB as a list. So suppose this scenario we test from the UI, what we will do. I am giving just example that from when we have pagination available on our website. So when we click on the second page, it will pull all these 6 records from the DB and show in a tabular format or any format which has been implemented on the UI, so we can see all the 6 records. So the same scenario we can test over here. So whatever scenario you can test via UI, you can also test it via API. It's a very good thing to test the APIs upfront, so it will help the developers also to integrate their APIs with the UI, and we will identify the issues quite early stage. So it's a very good thing. So till now we have seen the 2 examples, one for fetching a single record, the another one the list of the records from the DB. So now let's move on to the post method. So now friends, the post method which we are going to use is for adding a record into the DB. So when we test a post method, or we can say whenever we want to add record into the DB, or we want to insert record into the DB, we should select post, because the post method is used for inserting the record into the DB, and mainly depend on the architecture of your product. Also they might use put method also instead of post method. So if you can confirm with your developer also that what kind of method they have used for inserting the records. So you can just select from this drop down the post method. You just mention your URL, base URL, then the endpoint, and here the body content type. As you can see, there are application XML and there are many other formats also. So as we are testing the REST API, so we should select application JSON, because the records which are going to be inserted into a JSON format, which is a key value format, and this section is called body. So what body do, it will take all the data from the body section and insert into the DB. So this complete data will be inserted in DB, which we have mentioned over here. So all the parameters we are mentioning, it should be a part of body. So now let's click on send. Here you can see another HTTPS response which is 201 created. So this HTTPS response you are seeing, it's quite different from the previous one. We have the get API in previous example which says 200 OK, which means that we are good with our API which fetch all the records from the DB, and this shows that the record is successfully created into the DB. And you can see that the name and job which we have mentioned in our request are coming same in our response also. So this is the response API return. This is the ID. This is an auto-generated ID for that particular record, and the date timestamping also. It's all depend on the implementation, what kind of implementation is done by your developer. So, but basically these two values which you have added in your DB using the post method, it should always be present in the response. The name and the job should be there. So these all things we should consider first, and this is the again we should keep focusing on the application response time also, that how much time it is taking for inserting a single record. So these are the basic points we should consider when we test an API as a post method, or we want to insert a record into the DB. Here you can see that application JSON we should mention over here, or type of the format for which your API is taking the request. So as this is the REST API which is taking into the JSON format, so we have mentioned application JSON over here. So now let's move on to the another kind of request. So whenever we want to update a record into the DB, suppose for a particular record I want to perform update, I just want to update a single value, so we can use the patch method from here. Again, it's all depend on the architecture of your product, or it's all depend what kind of approach is used by your developers. Instead of patch, they can use put also. So what is the difference? Main difference the patch provide is that whenever we perform the update operation, it will update only data, only that data which is different from the DB which is already existing. So whatever we want to develop, it will update only that data, not the complete object. So this is the beauty of the patch method. So here you can see that we have mentioned the base API over here, the base URL of the API. We have mentioned the endpoints. We have given the parameter, and in the body content type, again we have mentioned application JSON because it's taking the request in JSON format, key and value format. In the body part, we have mentioned the parameter which we are going to update. So now let's click on send. Here you can see 200 OK. So response we have received that the name and the job. Previously job was leader, now it's updated as Zion resident. So it's successfully done. We have received 200 OK response. This is the HTTPS response. The time our application took is 743.53 milliseconds. So you can see the response. Again, this is the response which I am showing over here to you, is depend on the basically depend on the implementation side, because it might be not be the same for every case, but mainly you will see the values which you have updated over here should be come into the response also. So now again I am going to repeat one more time that what should we take care when we test the patch request is we should mention the request into the body part of the request. We should mention the data over here. We should select the body content type also, and once we execute that, then we should verify the response also, that what kind of response we are received. So friends, till now we have seen how we can fetch the records from DB, how we can insert record in DB, how we can update records in DB. So now let's see a couple of negative scenarios also. So here we are going to see that Suppose if there is we are going to search a user which is not existing in DB, then what kind of responses should be available? So again, it's depend on the implementation part. If you are mentioning uh, your parameter in path param or in query param, then you will get different kind of responses. There might be a chance that if you are mentioning with the path param, then you will get a separate response over here, and if you are mentioning in the query param, then you will get a separate response. It all depend on the implementation, but you will not, definitely you will not get the response 200. Okay. So suppose now I am going to show you that this is the user number 23, user ID 23, which is not available in DB. So now let's see what kind of response we will receive. Here 404, because this number which we have mentioned over here is in path param, and this causes the error 404 not found. So in real scenario, what happened when we test these kind of scenarios from UI, when we select a search criteria and records are not available on DB. So behind the scenes, what happened? The get method called, and this kind of URL passed to the DB, and on API level you receive this kind of error. But when the developer integrated with the UI, then you will get the custom error messages like no search found, no record found, there is no value available in DB, something like that. Whatever the custom messages you want, you can see over there. So it's depend on the requirement. The developer make those kind of integration based on the response he received for the API. Here you can see that the response is blank because there is no record available in DB. So based on these two combinations or any other combination, developer mentioned that on the UI, the custom messages they have mentioned that no record found in the DB. So this is the one negative scenario I have showed you over here. So now let's move on to another scenario, which is login scenario. So till now we have seen the records fetching from DB. We have also seen if there is no record found in DB, then what we will get, and what kind of the response we will receive when we are going to update the record in DB. So now we are going to see the scenario how we can test the login. Again, it's depend on the implementation part basically. So right now I am going to show you a very simple example to test login. Here in my API, I have to send the two mandatory parameters. One is user ID, which is email. The another one is password. So these two are the mandatory parameter, and these should be the valid parameters I should mention over here. So if I am going to mention the correct parameters over here, then I will receive a token in the response. So based on that token, my application is maintaining their session IDs and everything. So again, it's all depend on the implementation part, that sometimes there are the APIs created which are not dealing with the tokens, they are dealing with the session IDs or something else. So it's up to you that what responses you are receiving, what kind of implementation you have. So one of those I am going to show an example of based on the token. Now here we have mentioned the URL, method is post. In the body part we have mentioned the email and password in key value format. Click on send. Here 200. Okay, this is our response time token. So the a valid token has been generated because because the credentials are correct. Based on the credentials, random token has been generated for login. So these kind of scenarios we can test for login. Instead of many of the APIs, they are not generating token, they are generating session IDs or they are generating security IDs for that. So it depends on the implementation what you have. So now let's see a negative scenario for this login, how you can test it. So again, here I'm mentioning the values in the body part. You can see that here I'm just mentioning the email. I'm not giving the password, so the mandatory parameter is missing from here. So it's a negative scenario I'm going to test. So when I'm not giving any mandatory parameter, then 200 OK should not be there because it requires both parameters for generating the token. So now let's see. 400 BET request. What the error we are receiving? Missing password. As you know that this is the BET request. Why it is BET request? Because the second parameter is mandatory parameter, and that parameter should be passed into that API. If we are not passing it, then we are getting an error. Based on these errors, the user the integrated with the UI, and they are making the custom messages over there that invalid password or in missing username or password, something like that. So this is the another negative scenario for testing the login. So friends, what happen with the APIs? You can test it all, mainly almost 99% of the scenarios with the APIs, which you can test via UI. There are couple of scenarios might be possible, not able to test from the APIs, but with the API you can test all many scenarios. You can test which you can test via UI, and it's very good thing to test the APIs because they are giving us very upfront knowledge about the verifications and validity and the validation parts. Also, we can identify issues upfront, so it can decrease the cost of the product because before developing the UI, we fix those issues. Also, it helps developer to integrate their APIs with the UI based on the issues which we have reported. So this is a very important thing to test the APIs, and I think we should test APIs before creating the UI part or before integrating with the UI, because if we get those issues from the UI on the later stage, then it is very cumbersome to fix them and to risk to retest them. So friends, this is all about a very small tutorial about the API testing, how we can test and trace API. So thank you very much for your love and your support. Please share, like, and subscribe my channel and give your valuable feedback in comment section. Thank you.